Welcome to Fitness Casual. Real results come from more clarity, not more effort. I'm Andrew Hayes, and with me is the consistent Cap Est.
Hello.
Consistent with a K.
Yes.
Speaking of consistency, this is my first week. If you're listening to this, it's probably late September, but we're filming this like right as school just started, and I'm like, I got my schedule back, Kids are at school after 3 months of them being home. No camp, short camp. It's tough. I know every parent feels it. So it's nice to be back in a routine and feel like I can get stuff done, Is there, Kat, anything you've started and stopped or had trouble being consistent with in your life?
Something I'm really inconsistent with is learning Spanish. Ooh. So I did Spanish in school. I took AP Spanish in high school. It's unbelievable. I could read and write it. No problem. It's speaking it. Like, I can't do it all. It's like, it's so hard to speak it. And my boyfriend's Dominican. So I have the privilege of living with someone who's a fluent speaker, and I don't use it enough. Every once in a while, we'll like practice, go back and forth. And I'm always like, I got to do this every day, 10 minutes every day. We have to practice. Never happens. But every once in a while we will. But it's one of those things that I'm like, I have the best resource every single day that I have access to. And I am dropping the ball, and it's, I want to also communicate with his family better, so I really do want to learn Spanish, but Dominican Spanish is a whole different type of Spanish. It's very fast, but it's just really lack of, I think, caring enough about doing it, but it's definitely something that I think about, that I'm like, I need to get on this, but it's hard. It's really hard.
It's hard. So, I mean, you're so busy, you're kind of brain dead at the end of the day. Last thing you want to do is try to translate every word. I totally get it. Yeah, I mean, Dominican Spanish is like another level. We had a nanny from Mexico for a while, and so my wife is fairly fluent, conversational, whatever. So I've been trying to learn. And I'll go to the grocery store and just practice and fall on my face. But when I get my haircut at the Dominican barber, when I tell you I can't understand a single word that comes out of their mouth.
Nothing.
And I remember texting your boyfriend and being like, give me some slang. And so I did, and I walked in and dropped it, and they all got excited, and then they started speaking to me like I knew Dominican, and I couldn't decipher one single word. It's hard. Learning a foreign language is hard. I totally get it. I'm right there with you. We'll have to practice. Maybe we'll do a podcast on Espanol one day. We'll see.
Maybe.
Doubtful, but maybe.
Es posible.
Nice. Well done. Some fluent speakers are like, oh, God. Listen to you too, gringo. I have started and stopped so many musical instruments, which is a real shame because I really do like music, and it's something I would love my kids to get into. And I was forced to play piano as a child, like every other kid, and hated it.
Oh, you were one of those?
Yeah, and just, hated every second of it. So I don't think that's the right method. But then, fun fact, I do goal setting every year with my wife, which is something everyone should do.
Love it.
Like, what do we want to accomplish, and learn Spanish, whatever. And this was probably 4 years ago. She was like, are you doing Alta stuff this year? And I was like, I think I'm going to take a break from this business thing. It's really stressing me out. We were, nothing was happening at the time. I was still working full time. And I was like, I'm going to learn guitar. Again, for the second time, I'm actually going to do it. And I was like 3 weeks in, I'd bought a guitar because I'd sold my first one because I stopped. And I started doing YouTube lessons. And I was sitting there one day and I was like, nah, I kind of want to start a business. So the guitar is in my basement. Collecting dust. My kids play with it sometimes. It's completely out of tune, but the business is going well, so that's good. Yes. So I will revisit guitar for the third time at some point. But Kat, at least we've been consistent, helping people change lives, which is really, really good.
Very true.
So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to be consistent with fat loss. And we're going to use fat loss and weight loss kind of interchangeably today. I think just because that's how our clients, people listening to this, use it. But if you really want to do it sustainably, we're talking about fat loss. And this is something that everyone struggles with. I would say it's a little bit of a hot take, but also an aha moment to say weight loss is not that hard. Sustainable fat loss is hard. Weight loss can be hard mentally, of course, and all the struggles that come with it. But to lose a few pounds before a wedding or to lose a few pounds on some weird diet is really not a success metric. And we hear that so often. They're like, I did this thing, it worked, and then I gained it back. It's like, okay, well, it didn't work. And so what we're here to talk about today is set the record straight on why you gain the weight back after losing it and what can you do maybe to prevent that in the future.
This is a huge topic, and I think this is why we are in business, because people lose weight doing something and then they gain it all back, and then they're like, well, what's going on? Why can't I stay consistent? It's the yo-yo that actually forces people to really want to find a sustainable change. It is not the first time they lose weight successfully. If they want to do keto and they lost 30 pounds, they're feeling great. They're not like, wow, I need something better. It's after they gain 50 pounds back and now they're heavier than they used to be. This is what really causes the pain in people. And this is like definitely why we do what we do. There are very clear reasons why this happens. It's obviously, personalized, but there are very clear patterns that we see. So reason number one is choosing an unsustainable method or probably doing a fad diet. If you lose weight doing an approach that your body is never going to let you keep up with anyways, you're going to gain it back. Extreme calorie cutting out an entire food group. So if you don't eat sugar for 3 months and you lose 20 pounds, you have to not eat sugar for the rest of your life, if that is your plan. Really hard to do that. Juice cleanses are terrible. Eat this, not that rules. I put this here because that book is floating around in a lot of people, and it's kind of like, don't eat this at Burger King, but eat this at Burger King. It's terrible, makes no sense. There's no rationale there. It's just low calorie food. Prolonged fasting is definitely one meal a day, carnivore, keto. All of these things are probably putting you in a caloric deficit. That's why they're working. But unless you want to do that, it's not going to last. And rapid calorie restriction can lower your resting metabolism over time by hundreds of calories a day, what you would expect from weight loss alone. So now we have tanked your metabolism. Your hunger hormones actually stay elevated for over a year after dieting. This is proven in a study. I'm not making this up. This is why people get hungry, they stay hungry, and then you eat more, and then you gain all your weight back because your metabolism now is operating at a much less efficient place than it was before. And this is how that can happen without you even realizing that you are gaining weight. It just comes back so quickly and you're not even sure what really happened. This is more common with larger weight loss. I don't think it's happening to people who lose 5 to 10 pounds. This is people who are losing a lot of weight quickly, doing something that is really restrictive. Let's also mention that the stress from restriction spikes cortisol in your body, which can lead to more belly fat storage. It can cause muscle breakdown. Your body doesn't like being in an energy deficit. It's not how we're meant to operate. It's not how people operated, thousands of years ago. Yes, they would eat a lot and then maybe fast for longer periods of time, but they weren't always in this deficit and breaking down. There was a lot of rest, there was a lot of recovery, recharging, feeling stronger. This also will make your thyroid hormones drop, which slows your calorie burn, slows how much energy your body produces. So actually losing weight it's your responsibility to know how that impacts your body and to adjust accordingly. There is a documentary on Netflix that just came out about the show, The Biggest Loser. I haven't watched it yet because I have to be mentally prepared to watch those things because I get very, very sad. I get very sad. So I haven't watched it. I know exactly what's it about. I saw the preview. It's basically this guy who's like, I was 500 pounds and I lost, all this weight. I was 190 and now I'm 600 pounds. What happened? That's exactly what happens is you do this giant weight drop and then you gain it back. The stats also of that show, of the regain that people get, is just unbelievably high. And we're not talking tens of pounds, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of pounds. Crazy, so crazy. And this is why. This is exactly why, is they chose a really unsustainable method that will give them an unsustainable result. So it's just very important when you are losing weight, whatever method you're choosing, you better be aware that it's probably not something you could maintain if it's something that is pretty restrictive or hard for you to do while you are in weight loss mode.
And I just want to add something obvious, which is we're super compassionate about this. We understand, we do this every day, how mentally taxing this can be, and just how it permeates everything you do every day, looking at yourself in the mirror and how you feel in the morning and all of that stuff. It's a really difficult space. And then you're bombarded with shakes and bars and programs and methods, and everyone is there trying to take advantage of you struggling. And so it's really, really hard. And so this entire episode is really meant to just point out awareness of how many different ways you are being deceived. And so it's not about shaming you. If you've done Whole30 or whatever and it didn't work for you, we totally understand why. And we're always going to be here with open arms, either with our podcast or in our program, to help you. But we want you to not go through this cycle for 35 years. Don't be the clients that we have, and we love them all equally, who wait to do every single thing first before reaching out or before trying something different. You really want to get ahead of this and find the sustainable approach as early as you can.
Very true. So reason number 2 on why you lost weight and gained it all back is muscle loss or not strength training. When you are on a calorie restricted diet, so obviously you have to be on one to lose weight, lose fat, research shows that 25 to 35% of the weight you lose can come from lean mass if you are not doing resistance training. So again, if you are in a caloric deficit, you are not resistance training, 25 to 35% of your weight loss comes from lean mass. This is absolutely detrimental. Muscle loss will lower your daily calorie burn, so you could basically eat the same amount, and now that you're in less of a deficit, you think you're going to start gaining weight. So basically your body is less efficient at burning energy, so the weight you took to maintain your weight before may actually make you gain weight now. That's pretty wild, and this is something a lot of people don't know, and it's definitely very confusing. Muscle is the most metabolically active tissue that you have, and your muscle is the main place that your body stores and uses carbohydrates. So if you lose your muscle, and your carbs are more likely now to be stored as fat because they have less places to go. This is why people with muscle mass need to eat a lot to keep it on their body. They need to eat thousands and thousands of calories in order to either build muscle or keep it. And if they, undereat a little bit, they will start losing muscle because it requires a lot to keep muscle on your body. But that's an amazing thing for your metabolism. And the more muscle you have, the more you can eat and the leaner you can stay. And that's ultimately what a lot of people want at the end of the day. But I notice a lot of people don't want a resistance training. So it's like they want the benefits of resistance training without having to put in the work. And sorry, that's not how things work these days. If you are resistance training consistently while in a caloric deficit and pairing that with adequate protein, you can almost completely prevent muscle loss. And in some cases, you could even gain a small amount of muscle. Depending on your training history, depending how new you are to resistance training, you actually could have that happen. So that just goes to show that if you are resistance training while in a caloric deficit, you can really preserve the muscle mass you have, and then you're going to look even better when you lose fat because you're going to look a little more toned. Maybe your weight loss isn't as much because your weight actually, you're either building muscle or there's muscle mass staying on you, and that is confusing. But if you look at yourself in the mirror and you clearly look leaner, your pants are fitting better, that's a really amazing place to be. This is really important to keep in mind that resistance training is fundamental if you want to keep the weight off. In perimenopause, which is women starting around 40s when hormones start to change, women can lose up to 8% of their muscle per decade without strength training. And that number can double if you're dieting. So this, I really think, is one of the biggest reasons women in perimenopause blame perimenopause for getting fat or, really struggling with weight loss or whatever they have going on. Your estrogen levels support muscle repair and strength. So when your estrogen naturally drops, muscle loss can happen faster, but it won't if you are actively resistance training. And this is why women who start resistance training at any age, like my mother started working out in her late 50s for the first time. And now she looks great, stronger than she's ever felt before. And she's like, wow, I feel so amazing doing this. That just goes to show it's never too late to start, but her starting her resistance training, even in her late 50s, is going to benefit her for the rest of her life, going into old age, and even with her hormone health and all that stuff. So it's really never too late. One reason I also think this really gets to a lot of women in particular is because they like to do cardio. If they're going to work out, they do cardio. It's comfortable, it's familiar. It's pretty easy to hop on a machine or go for a run compared to lifting when you're not very body aware or you're kind of freaked out by the gym or you're insecure. And also a lot of busy people default to cardio because it's faster, easier, less to think about. But that accelerates muscle loss, especially if you're in a caloric deficit. So now we are burning more calories per day, metabolism is adapting, we're eating less food, and now it's very easy to gain weight with a much lower caloric intake than you think, and that is very confusing. So that's just why muscle plays such an incredibly important role, and we will never stop talking about the benefits of resistance training on here, and definitely in our program. It's something we encourage everyone to do no matter what they have going on, and we see that the people who do it get a much better result at the end of the day than the people who struggle to get consistent with that routine.
I don't like to have a gun to my head and pick one thing that everyone should do. I think everyone's different. We don't give blanket advice, as much as we can, but just consistently people I speak to in my network, in our program, this is such a big one. I think so many people overlook just a couple days a week of true resistance training and how life-changing it can be in so many ways, short-term goals and long-term health. And so I know we've talked about this topic a lot. We did a whole episode on it about how to get started if you feel intimidated and all that stuff. But please, like, don't skip this. And this is just to underscore this point even further. The GLP-1s, semaglutide, Ozempic, whatever you want to call it, the reason there's a backlash right now is because this was overlooked. Because people lost weight really quickly, which, as you outlined, Kat, 25 to 35% of this weight is coming from lean muscle mass, which means in a year from now, not only are you gaining this weight back because you're off the drug, but you're also in a worse place than when you started. And no one told these people that, right? They're like, you're going to lose weight. But we're not going to tell you that you actually have less lean muscle mass, which makes you lower energy, slower metabolism. Your fat cells are still there. They're going to come back really quickly. And so skipping this and only focusing on fad diets or, really strict protocols where you're cutting a lot of calories might actually make you worse off in a year or two than just like, oh, it didn't quote work. And so just be really careful ignoring muscle loss and resistance training. It is a life-changing habit.
And it's not something you're going to figure out right away. Like, I didn't really understand lifting for a while after doing it, but if I had a coach and I had someone to guide me early on in the process, which today there's a million good resources out there, it would have gone a lot better. So, like, there are a lot of people in your camp if you haven't adapted this habit yet, and there's so much you can do to figure it out quite easily. Even if you just start doing some squats at home, some push-ups on the wall, like whatever, it doesn't need to be that hard, but you need to do something.
Yep.
All right, so reason number 3 is lifestyle drift, or not being fully honest about what's going on. I think this is very, very common. And in my opinion, I think maintaining weight loss is honestly the hardest phase of weight loss. That's a hot take. Losing weight, you are very focused on doing a specific thing, following, macros and, resistance training and just doing things for the short term to get to where you need to be. But once you hit maintenance, a lot of people are like, all right, no rules, less restriction. I don't have a goal to focus on anymore. So it's a lot easier to be like, yeah, I'll do that thing, or I'll go out a couple more times a week. This lifestyle drift is exactly what catches up to people. This also highlights people who have all or nothing mentalities very strongly. When people are locked into a goal, people can execute. And then once they don't have a clear goal, or they're like, well, I got here, now I'm going to do nothing. That will obviously make you gain weight back. And weight regain doesn't happen from a big weekend or a restaurant meal that was just absolutely massive. It doesn't happen from a week on vacation. It's really the slow creep of these old habits coming back. Were you tracking your food before and then you stopped cold turkey when you got to your goal? Are you drinking a little bit more alcohol each week? A couple more drinks here and there? Are you skipping the gym a few times more per month because you're not that locked into your target? These are little things that people do. Maybe seasons of life, you got busier, you had kids, job change, whatever, and it's really easy to slack on a couple things just a little bit, but that compounds to be something quite significant that slowly, if you start gaining even a couple pounds per month, in 5 years, you could have gained, 30, 40 pounds, and then you're like, oh my God, what happened? And it's because it wasn't some big event. It's just a slow thing that over time you weren't really paying attention to. Your gut bacteria actually is very sensitive, and they've tested that the gut bacteria of obese people is very different than the gut bacteria of people with a healthy weight. If you start slowly bringing back more ultra processed foods, or maybe you're eating a little bit more fast food, this can alter your gut bacteria. And people who used to be overweight, the body kind of tends to go back to that if you were. The gut bacteria is really fascinating. So if you just start eating more of the foods you used to eat that maybe you cut out when you were trying to lose weight, your body can go right back to that state. I don't think it's a surprise for anyone to know that if you have fat cells, they don't disappear, they just shrink. And those fat cells want to be fat. So if you start gaining weight back, those cells are like, ooh, we know this. And then that's how this happens so quickly. And that's why it's really, really hard actually to maintain weight loss, especially if you were overweight for a long time. If most of your life you were overweight, that can actually be quite hard to maintain because it's so much rooted in your habits. And if you are getting poor sleep, if you start skipping meals, maybe you forgot, to eat protein at every meal, you're eating out a couple more times per week, you could lead to more cravings, could lead to more accidental overeating. On the data side of things, if you are not doing any more weigh-ins, if you're not taking any more progress pictures, if you're ignoring data trends, partially because maybe you're slipping and you don't want to confront it, or you're just like, I don't need to weigh myself because I hit my goal weight. Those things really can slip, and then you're just losing awareness and you're not paying attention to trends over time. And a lot of people do that because it's rooted in shame. They are embarrassed at the fact that they gained that first 5 pounds back. And instead of doing something about it, they just are kind of like, oh, I'm not going to weigh myself anymore. I can't confront this. And then that's really sad because you're kind of like blowing all the hard work you did. But you have to keep in mind, maintenance is just a different set of skills. It's not over. It's just a very different set of skills. When you get to that point, it's a different approach, but you still have to have an approach. And like I tell our clients, maintenance is a goal. Maintaining your weight is a goal that you are working towards. It's not something you get to that all of a sudden becomes very easy. We're just doing something different in maintenance mode.
That's right.
Okay, so what to do to not gain the weight back? I know this is probably what everyone wants to know. Like, okay, now that I know all the reasons I can gain weight, here's what to do to not gain it back. And this is a more simplified approach. This is very specific for everybody. But again, I help a lot of people do this. I see people keep the weight off for years, so I know it can be done. You should track your food intake so you are not guessing. And if you are not tracking your food intake, let's say you never tracked your food in order to lose weight, you had some sort of strategy going on in order to get there. So you need to just keep track of that. Whatever that was, still be aware of that. But I think if you're tracking your food, you know exactly where you're at. So when you get to the end of your weight loss, you know exactly what your food intake is. You could be like, all right, I know that I'm eating 1,600 calories right now in my deficit to lose weight. So what do I have to do to maintain weight? Like that is, to me, the best way to do it because you know exactly where we're at. You're not guessing. You're not, really paying attention to like smaller things that don't matter. You have the data, so you're not that concerned also about having a little bit of sugar or a little more restaurant food. If you're kind of within your macro range, you're going to be good. And if you are tracking your food, then you do what's called a reverse diet. This is incredibly important. It's something I walk through a lot of our clients through when they hit their goal weight. I think not doing a reverse diet is incredibly irresponsible if you want to maintain weight and like really keep it off for the long term. And really all that is slowly increasing your calories back up over time. For every few weeks you make one adjustment, and you might need to do that 3 to 5 times to get back up to maintenance calories. But you're doing it so slowly that you can catch if you're gaining weight too fast. Here's a fun fact. A lot of my clients still continue to lose weight as we reverse because the metabolism just gets a lot more efficient. We're kicking. We are doing well. We are eating protein, and then we are lifting weights. We are using the energy also that their body's creating, which is awesome. That's exactly what I want for people. But you need to intentionally get yourself back up to a maintenance intake. And if you don't know what your maintenance is, you never will. And it's really easy to accidentally overeat or even accidentally undereat and kind of never really get to that nice new baseline. A lot of women are perpetually dieting forever. They're always on a diet. Because then they're not, the fun fact, they're not on weekends, they're not, or vacation, they're not, like they're really doing these like drastic swings day to day. And, that person probably has never really lost weight and kept it off for that reason. You need to just eat at maintenance sometimes for a good chunk of time. That's what the body really likes.
I want to add a note on food tracking and then I'll let you go to the next one. This is a very polarizing topic, food logging. And as always, everyone's different. There's some people out there who shouldn't do it. It's triggering, sure. But for most people, I think most people look at it as a diet, right? This is something we see a lot. They're like, I tried it, I lost weight, it was tedious, it came back. Food logging, in our opinion, Kat, is the tool to understand where you are today, as you know, and to get you where you want to go. So think of it like a GPS. If you've never been somewhere, you need a GPS or a map to get there. Eventually, you learn the route. You don't need to track it forever, but studies have shown that people underestimate calories by 20 to 50% on a given day. And so that means if you're aiming for 1,500 calories, which is already kind of low, but that's somewhere between maybe a deficit and getting close to maintenance for like a smaller woman, like you're actually eating 2,500 according to the study. So you're way off. You're now in a surplus by far because you're not tracking everything you eat. And no one's saying you need to do this forever. No one's saying you need to be on a restrictive diet. We're just saying you really need to educate yourself so you can understand. And tracking in a reverse cat, I think you agree, maybe for a little bit is also probably a good idea.
Yep.
If you agree. Yeah. So just think of it that way. This is short term. It's a sprint. Build that knowledge up. Understand where you're missing. It's not always as simple as calories, but most people don't even have this right. And so don't overlook the importance of really, really tracking well. Not cheating, not forgetting stuff, not ignoring weekends. Like, really do it. Be honest with yourself. You'll be amazed at how much you learn and how quickly you can move on from it.
And if you can't use food tracking as a neutral tool to build awareness, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying have a neutral attitude about it. You have a mindset issue. You are afraid of something. You probably have some potential slight disordered eating, some relationship with restriction and having fun foods and living your life. Like, these are the people who don't like tracking food, and they also struggle. And it's not because there's actually anything wrong with tracking. It's what they make it mean that prevents them from actually getting benefits from it. So always important to check yourself there. If you feel like you have a very strong opinion about it, but you've never done it before, there's probably some underlying reason there that also relates back to why you might be struggling.
And you're not alone. How many people have come to a program who don't have an emotional side? Zero, probably.
Yep.
We've all been there. We're loud and proud about this on our podcasts about our emotions as well. So just own it.
Yeah, totally.
You're not alone.
All right, so next thing to do is to work in phases. So I mentioned being at maintenance, getting up to maintenance. If you stay at maintenance for a little bit and then you do a fat loss phase for 8 to 12 weeks and then you go back to maintenance for 8 to 12 weeks, we are in a really nice place. Hopefully, I would love for you to fit some muscle building phase in there too. But if we're working in phases, you have different goals for different parts of the year, and you are way more likely to not gain the weight back if you're just staying focused on specific things, working towards them, tailoring your diet to fit whatever it is. But you need to work in phases. If you're in our program and I tell you we need to go to maintenance now, and I'm not really making it an option because I think it's incredibly important for your success, you know what I'm talking about. And I do that to people where I'm like, all right, we've been in a deficit for long enough. We're going to work up to maintenance now, but we can always go back to a fat loss phase after we've stayed here for a little bit. So it's also reinforcing that, you should not be in a caloric deficit forever. You need to give your body a break if you really want to keep the weight off. It's very important to do that. So you should always be working in phases. If you are on a diet, it should not be endless amounts of time until you hit your goal weight. You should also be able to take a break at a certain time, change it up and then go back to it if it was working for you. But it's just important to always be working in phases and having a goal at the time. But the goal could be maintenance, building muscle, performance, whatever, you can change it up, but that goal will keep you on track to probably maintain your weight loss too. And resistance training, like we mentioned before, I think it's a non-negotiable. I really don't think it's okay to not do this. I think it's so important. Our lives are just incredibly sedentary. We are barely challenging our bodies. Even if you're walking around a lot, I'm pretty active moving around, but it's not challenging my muscles if I'm going on long walks. You need to be doing at least 2 sessions per week. 1, I think, is better than none, but it's probably not going to move the needle enough, but 2 can be pretty good. 3 is great. And then more than 3, also good. You definitely don't need more than 5. But I think if you're at least getting 2, I'm very happy with that. Again, you just need to challenge your muscles. It's not happening in today's world. So whatever it is that gets you to do some sort of weight-bearing exercise, I'm cool with that. You do not need to go to the gym, do a structured program, even though that's the best way to do it. Highly encourage that, but you don't have to. You just need to find some way to challenge your muscles a little bit more than maybe like a yoga class or something. You just need to have actual challenge there because you will be amazed how efficient this is for your metabolism. You'll also build confidence. You'll look even better. It's just super, super important that you do that. I think you should also have non-negotiable habits that you prioritize in all phases. So these are things, a lot of the core habits we teach our clients are things that don't only exist for the fat loss phase, it's actually for the rest of your life. These things are incredibly important. And if you view the habits that way, that will work well for you. If you view them as things I only need to do temporarily, then you will think there's an end point to that. You can decide what your non-negotiable habits are, but for example, it could be like protein at every meal, water when you wake up, having breakfast before coffee, maybe dessert only when you're eating out at a restaurant or on a special occasion, not just because you have it at home every night. Alcohol, maybe set yourself a drink limit. That's the same regardless of whatever your goal is. You just have these non-negotiables for health, for wellness, that will translate forward. But if you forget all of your habits. When you hit your goal weight, then you are definitely going to gain weight back 100%. Last thing here is to do a baseline habit audit every month where you take intentional time to check in on the areas that you're not thinking about day to day. Life flies by. Time flies by. I cannot believe like we're almost in fall already. Like summer just started. Time really does fly to where you can be like, wow, a year went by and I gained 20 pounds and I have no idea what happened. Like what happened there? I hear this all the time, especially from parents of little kids. It's like you're stuck in a time warp. And then by the time your kids are a little bit older, like 5, 6, now you're ready to handle it. But how much happened in that time? You need to do an audit where you really sit with yourself and you think about things you don't think about day to day. You could think about your steps, your workouts, your food intake, your mood, digestion quality, sleep, water, what slipped, what could improve. And a lot of people could be like, wow, I forgot about water this past month. Do something about it and then improve it. But if you're not taking time to like do this little audit with yourself, you're never going to catch those things. So I think if you put it in your calendar once a month to kind of do this, maybe twice a month could be even better, but I think you need to have some sort of audit going on. Even better if you can do this with like a loved one or someone you trust. That's also helpful for accountability. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to think about these things yourself. Like I cannot tell you how many times, sometimes I ask people like, oh, how's your water intake been lately? And they're like, oh, I forgot. Like it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget about things. They kind of can wean off, but like it can be really important. So you just need to have a list of things that you pay attention to and ways that you monitor yourself. This is why I think wearables and weight tracking and progress pictures actually is really helpful to just see trends over time, not judge the day-to-day things, but more of like month to month when you're trying not to gain weight back is just incredibly important.
Excellent. Anything else?
No, I think that covered a lot. There's obviously more. There's like lots of other things. You could get health conditions, you could take medications. Like there's a lot of other things here, but I think for the most part, it kind of boils down to these 3 things for most people.
Great. So here's just a quick truth bomb for the end here. If you've lost weight and gained it back, it's not because you're weak, right? It's not because you did anything wrong. It's not because you're a failure. You want to make that very clear. It's because the method that you chose or the things that you didn't do to it, like resistance training, along with it, aren't built to last. Extreme diets can wreck your metabolism, wreck your hormones, can arguably put you in a worse place than where you started. And then, of course, skipping strength training again, and you can also drift back to old habits. So this cycle isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility, Kat, as you like to say, to break it. And so if you are stuck in this cycle and you can't get out, that's one of the reasons to call us, right? That is what our program is designed to do, Kat. We have a repeatable framework, stop the rebound, strength, sustainable nutrition, looking at hormone issues, looking at other conditions that might be going on, making this cycle difficult to break. And so if you need help finally stopping, give Kat a call because she's great.
Yes.
Anything else to add, Kat?
No, I think we covered a lot of it. But, at the end of the day, don't be shameful. If you can catch the first 10 pounds you gain back and do something about it, you are doing yourself a major favor instead of letting it become 30 pounds or 50 pounds because it's just so much harder. And I think there's a lot of studies that show that when you lose weight and you gain more back, it makes losing even harder. And it just gets harder every single time. And I think this is a form of self-sabotage as well that's rooted in a lot of mental things going on. But shame is a big part of it. Mental health is a really big conversation with this. So just don't feel bad about it. Reach out for help if you feel like you're unable to do this on your own.
Love it. Well, you can find more from Kat and all of her helpfulness at Kat Best Wellness on Instagram. And you can follow me at Andrew Hayes Life and join our Alta Life community. You can get support from lots of people to help keep you accountable. We all need accountability, Kat and myself included. So don't do this alone. Come hang out with us in our community. Lots of fun stuff going on. We'll see you for the next one, everyone.
Bye, guys.